Wheel to Heal, cycling to beat cancer.
That's one of the people who passed on. But we are very often astounded by the miracles, but there's a lesson for us in this. And in our tradition, we believe it's not sufficient just to repeat these stories or only believe them, but how we can manifest and reflect those kind of lessons in our lives. Each one of those miracles was a means and a gateway to assist and empower other people, whether it was healing of the sick, feeding of the poor, or even bringing it back to life. In other words, it was nothing by which he himself gained something, it was through his effort that other people benefited. And it's in that regard and in that spirit that I pay tribute and we ask the Almighty to bless this venture, a venture which is joyful. I mean, people who are involved in cycling, who are participating in a sport, but for a cause greater than themselves. And as we know in the Islamic tradition, من عاش لنفسه عاش صغيرا ومات صغيرا ونسيه الناس. Whoever lives for themselves and do things for themselves, they live small lives and they are soon forgotten. ومن عاش لغيره عاش كبيرا ومات كبيرا وذكره الناس. And those who do things beyond themselves, for things for other than themselves, they live great lives, make great contributions, and as people benefit, they are remembered long after the death. May this be such a venture. We begin, I ask you to join me in a very short prayer. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of the Almighty, most compassionate, most merciful. Bismillahi wa alayhi wa ala tawakkaltu ala Allah. We begin in the name of Allah and with Him and with His blessing and relying upon Him. We ask the Almighty, let this thing begin well. Allahumma aftah lana bil khair, wakhtim lana bil khair. واجعل عواقب أمورنا بالخير بيدك الخير والعافية إنك على كل شيء قدير. O Allah, let this venture begin well, let it end well, and let the consequence of what they do be good and beneficial. Let it be manfa'ah and khair, benefit and goodness for all people involved. May Allah bless all those who participate. May Allah bless all those who contribute, and may Allah heal those who will benefit from this project. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. We turn to you, O Almighty. You are the one who listens to all calls and who knows everything private and public. وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا يَا إِلَهَنَا يَا مَوْلَانَا. And we turn to you in repentance for any shortcomings on our part, for you turn with mercy and compassion for those and to those who turn to you in mercy. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And all forms of thanks and all forms of praise is due to you, the cherisher, the nourisher, the sustainer, and the Lord of the worlds. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum.
Shukran to you, Sheikh Saadullah Khan, for being with us here this evening and to acceding to the request of our hosts to render that short prayer and dua, and also for your devotion earlier on. Thank you for that, and we certainly pray that you may continue to work in the community and do the sterling work that you are noted for, and we sincerely appreciate all your efforts. Thank you so much, Sheikh Saadullah Khan. So just to contextualize our event, and first and foremost, a warm welcome to each and every one of you here tonight, our respected guests, our dignitaries who are here this evening, members of the business fraternity, as well as our esteemed colleagues in the media fraternity as well. Thank you for also acceding to the request of our organizers and being amongst us here tonight. The launch of the Wheel to Heal initiative is what has brought us all together. The initiative will be undertaken traveling 560 kilometers, I think it is, from Mossel Bay to Cape Town by a team of 30 cyclists, all of whom are with us here tonight, and they will be introduced to you at some point during the program as well by the chairperson of the organization. The very chairperson of this initiative being launched tonight lost his wife after a 24-month battle with cancer a few years ago. He'll explain further regarding the role she played in his life while she was alive, and more to the point, how this has inspired the initiative being launched here tonight. A while ago, seemingly left with a void in his life and trying to find a way to fill this gap, he undertook a regimen of exercise. And this regimen of exercise include running. But that running exercise, the brakes were put onto that regimen very, very soon after he developed an issue with his back and his vertebra. On consulting with the surgeon, it was told that he needed to undergo surgery, which he then did, and I was then advised that running is certainly not going to be helping him any longer. He then sought further advice as to what could he do from an exercise perspective, because the chairperson that I remember, like myself, we shared something in common, and that was a bit of a paunch. But anyway, be that as it may, it's definitely disappeared now. He was then advised to take up cycling. Something which he told me he'd never in his entire life done. He'd never gotten on a bicycle ever in his life. And he was told that cycling will certainly do wonders for him. And he considered it for a while, and then thereafter got a nephew to help him and teach him to cycle. And as he said, and I say this very modestly and very humbly, he said, "Ek het 'n paar keer op my bek geval." And he says he's got the scars to show it and to prove it as well. And you can check it out with him a little bit later on. But he also said that he literally fell many times. But he got up and he got back onto that bicycle again, and he was literally pushed around till he could on his own, you know. I wonder if do you still have the training wheels, I wonder. But nevertheless, he does it without that at this point in time. But he never gave up. He continued to learn, and he eventually became proficient in cycling and thoroughly enjoyed the experience. Ultimately, teaming up with like-minded cyclists, as I said, many of whom are here tonight, and building a positive relationship with them, he then continued, and his journeys took him further and further, and cycling far and wide, the length and breadth of the Western Cape, I think. and entering competitions, etc., and succeeding at that. He says, though, very much tongue-in-cheek, that one of the main factors, and I never realized this, in deciding the route or the distance that one has to travel, or the duration that one will travel, one of the main factors, and this is apparently scientifically proven, is the distance to the next coffee shop. And that is a very important factor for cyclists, apparently. So I believe it is obviously the scent of the coffee and the pastries that determine their goal. Ladies and gentlemen, to quote the following, Mark Cavendish, British pro racer, said the following. He said, "To me, it doesn't matter whether it's raining, the sun is shining, or whatever. As long as I'm riding a bike, I know I'm the luckiest guy in the world." To our purpose here tonight then, Wheel to Heal aims to support initiatives and raise funds for cancer patients and those suffering from multiple sclerosis, and where possible, to also seek to provide relief for the underprivileged and the needy. And to this end, on their journey from Mossel Bay to Cape Town, they will be stopping at various towns and handing over food hampers to the underprivileged in those communities and engaging with the communities as well. All this will be filmed along the way, and you'll be able to watch on their social media platform their engagement with the community and with members of those towns that they'll be traveling through. Certainly quite a wonderful undertaking. Life is about relationships, and it certainly appears as per the following quote by Tommy Godwin, a long-distance cyclist, who said, "Riding a bike is everything to the cyclist. The friendship and camaraderie you have with other cyclists. To a cyclist, it was the be-all and end-all of your life. It is a lifelong commitment." This initiative was mooted and proposed by his fellow cycling teammates after hearing the story of what his wife had meant to him, and also the battle that she had with cancer as well. Let me leave you with this quote, and it's a quote by the late eminent Desmond Tutu, who said, "Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Teach a man to cycle and he'll realize that fishing is stupid and boring." Ladies and gentlemen, I need to thank Desmond Tutu for that one. Please welcome the chairman of the Wheel to Heal initiative, Dr. Elias Parker.
Dare I say that I knew as much about cycling as much as cycling knew about me. I couldn't been earlier before I started cycling. Thank you, Mahmoud, for that kind introduction. As he rightfully says, that the impetus and the catalyst for this initiative came primarily from a dedicated group of individual co-cyclists of mine. And I owe them a great deal of gratitude. I owe them a great deal of compassion for sustaining me through this process, this learning phase, to the extent where I can proudly say it today, I am the beneficiary of my first medal in a 95-kilometer race. And in the process of, and let me also say that without mentioning names, I'll do the disclaimer afterwards. There were some colleagues that were much younger, much nicer looking than me. They didn't finish before me. But before I carry on, would you allow me to, and maybe I need to say this, that whilst the initiative or the origin of this initiative resides with my late wife having passed on after suffering with cancer for 2 years, I have to say that this is by no means about me or about her. This is about 30 cyclists who have put their shoulders to the wheel, who have done sterling work over the last, we met for the first time about 6 weeks ago. And tonight we're doing a launch, and dare I say, we've got 25 cyclists registered, and we're looking for another 5, which I'm sure will be encircled before tomorrow night. So I, with respect, would like to call my team here, because I am nothing and nobody without them. So if you don't mind, I'm going to call my co-cyclists, Adnan, Manuel. I need you to share the spotlight with me. As I said, this is not about me. This is more about you than me, for that matter. Mr. Ahmed Suleiman, the handsome-looking debonair Mr. Ahmed Suleiman. Mr. Anil Lala, right on stage, please, if you don't mind. Mr. Bucks, Ashley Dietrich, Asif Ayub, Azar Parker. This is the nephew that literally held my hand, or rather held my bike when he taught me to cycle. Basir Musaji, the extraordinary coach. They started to hate him because he's such a stringent dietitian. Faisal Hunter, Mr. Hassan Parker, if you don't have a cramp, you can rush to the stage. Mr. Irfan Bray, Muazzam Muqaddam, sorry for that, Muazzam Commandant. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to pause here. The next cyclist that I'm going to introduce puts us all to shame, especially me, who started cycling after crossing 60. This is a man who has had adversity through his entire life, was born with polio, was involved in a life-threatening accident where every bone in his body was broken. I went to go see him on the night in Strand Hospital, and I told my wife every drawback, he's not going to make it. But you know what? The man is the only hand cyclist in our community. He's done 9 August. I give you Mr. Rafiq Parker. Come. And Mr. Rafiq Parker is going to undertake this journey, this treacherous journey of 560 plus kilometers, right from Mossel Bay to Cape Town. Another round of applause for him. Mr. Rashad Harding, Mr. Sadiq Mohammed, Sadiq Palika, Bakar Zalgankar, Zainul Abidin Mauser, Mr. Ikhlas Sirkot, Muhammad Khilmi Titus, Jason James, and Benali Fuzani, Shorty, my man. And last but not least, Mr. Abdullah Parker, my namesake. So in many ways, this launch is indeed a historic and a watershed event. Academia Library, for those that know, has had decades where it's been dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge in its process of empowerment through community sport, like the Big Walk. That was the first community event of its kind. We also then pioneered from there onwards with various dinners, transitioning lately into a book library of multimedia facility. Now, all these endeavors were inspired by the sheer commitment to serve the community and to realize the ideals that we privately envisaged. Thank you. What sets Wheels to Heal apart from the rest is that it was inspired by a special person whose unique sense of service and dedication has had the most supportive and enabling influence in my life. Maryam Parker was the presence. I think I will appreciate some quiet behind me, please. You are disturbing me, guys. Maryam Parker was a presence that made my work possible over many decades. Her enduring love and support infused the realization of the ideals I shared with many others. And here I have to say that subsequent to her passing away, I realized that whatever I've done, and I don't consider myself to have done a lot, but whatever little bit that I've done, I think 90% of that was her. So whatever I am, whoever I am, is 90% because of my late wife, because she took care of the entire life of mine while I was running around. And ironically, it is in her absence as a beloved spouse, following a 24-month-long battle with cancer, that the counterintuitive is now possible, a deepening of a commitment to the same ideals, which hopefully will serve this humanity that we so dearly love. The cancer that took her away at the age of 49 is an affliction that now inspires hope. Her quiet sacrifice kindles a resistance to a disease. Above all, from a selfless rise to a spirit to serve those who similarly are affected. Maryam remains one of the enduring sources of values that continues to offer meaning to life, and that transcends to death in many cases. And it is against this background that Wheels to Heal is launching here tonight with a focus on both cancer and multiple sclerosis. Shireen Parker, the wife of our only hand cyclist, Mr. Rafik Parker, also succumbed to multiple sclerosis. And it is her widower, Mr. Rafik Parker, a cyclist, as I said, living with polio, who is the only known hand cyclist who is going to join us from Mossel Bay to Cape Town. This is precisely the extraordinary spirit that turns the wheels and that drives the power to heal and to restore. Healing, as you know, is an eminently positive energy that transcends through all of us. It is buoyed by the most affirming human attributes and effort, like faith in most of us who are merciful, and the medical care that truly cares the indomitable will to live and conquer infirmity. We are all capable of resisting disease in unique ways, but alas, we are not allowed with the same resources and means of resistance in an appalling, unequal society. Human folly imposes disharmony and undermines the interests of the poor and the needy. It is therefore human intervention that must heal and restore balance with good health, inshallah. With the available data, it is estimated that in 2020, almost 110,000 new cases of cancer were diagnosed in South Africa, with more than 56,000 related deaths, which is a staggering more than 50%. Another statistics, according to the National Cancer Registry, South Africa's incidence rate of 22.5 cases per 100,000 women for cervical cancer is well above the global threshold of 15 per 100,000 throughout the world. Women in rural areas are most affected than most others in the urban areas. The mortality rates in rural areas are higher, both due to the lack of education as well as the lack of proper care. Statistically, it's also been proven that in these rural areas, 22% of the deaths that occur as a result of cancer is because of A, no detection, B, late detection. This is an absolute disgrace to humanity as far as we are concerned. Whilst both the public and the private sector struggle and squabble about resources and responsibilities, it is up to the local communities and civic institutions to take small steps, making a meaningful contribution. Wheel to Heal is one of such effort, inspired by a woman and championed by my cyclists and our community. We are all privileged to be part of this community. It is therefore with deep gratitude that I acknowledge the extraordinary dedication of my 29 co-cyclists who are going to undertake this 560-kilometer journey from Mossel Bay to Cape Town. And this is along the most breathtaking routes of the fairest of Cape. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, I wish to take a small recess as I take this opportunity and ask you to join me as we unveil the first title sponsor of Wheel to Heal 2022. Can I have Mr. Niaz Mauser, Mr. Noshad Sirkoth on stage as well? Mr. Niaz Mauser? Noshad? Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as you witness the unveiling of our new title sponsor, Wheel to Heal 2020. I give you Africa Muslim Agency, an organization that have legendary stories to tell as far as relief work throughout the communities is concerned. Are we playing soccer tonight? And it is at this time that we are so dearly in need of hope that I must offer a superlative word of gratitude to our title sponsor, Africa Muslims Agency. Mr. Imran Chunara of AMA is a generous visionary whose heart and mind is attuned to the highest level of pragmatism and service to humanity. AMA's commitment and flair for humanitarian work was amply demonstrated in Imran's immediate acceptance of this proposal to support the initiative of Wheel to Heal as the first title sponsor. Similarly, we thank the media for attending this launch and for their promise to promote it on their respective platforms. Your role is indispensable because you are our gateway to the hearts, minds, and souls of our communities. We thank AMA, we thank our cyclists, we thank the media, and we thank the diverse support base as both enabled and is an embodiment as far as we aim to strive to pursue the raising of not less than 2 million rand with this initiative. And we are bold enough to reach out to local communities to help us reach this target in our first year by sponsoring our cyclists X rand per kilometer. Rome was not built in a day, but every Roman built something every day. It is in this visionary spirit that I appeal to everyone to see this as an opportunity to be part of an extraordinary project that can and must deliver hope. After all, we are a wonderfully human nation. There is more hope in humanity in the worst of times to bring out the best of humanity at all times. With these few words, I have the greatest pleasure, and it is my distinct honor to introduce our title sponsor, the CEO of Africa's Muslim Agency, Mr. Imran Chunara.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good evening, and welcome to one and all. And first of all, I think, one of the, it's hard for me to speak after hearing Dr. Parker and his words. Every single time I've met this man, and every single time, whether publicly or privately, and he brought up his wife's name, he never failed to have emotion well up within him. And for me, that's truly love. That is truly love. At Africa Muslims Agency, one of the things that we stand by is that if you are ever in a position to help another human being, but you choose not to because of a difference in religious background or ethnicity or culture or nationality or race, then there's something fundamentally wrong with your sense of humanity. Because first and foremost, every single one of us is a human being. We may differ on our understanding of where we come from or how we get to the source of where we come from. But one thing we cannot differ on is that we come from the same source, regardless of how we view it. It is the same source. So when we have the opportunity to help another human being in any way whatsoever, and we have the ability to even make the smallest of effort, and we choose not to for whatever reason of bias, it exposes that something is fundamentally wrong with our humanity. But for the next few minutes, I want to share with you just the concept of love, because that's truly what Dr. Parker exhibits. And what his co-cyclists exhibit with him is love for him. Many of them probably never met his wonderful wife. But let's be honest, every single one of us in this room and every single one of us, people we know, have been somehow touched by cancer. Whether it's someone close to you and I, or whether it's someone we know who is close to you and I. And multiple sclerosis. Let's be honest. And whether it's someone, and the love you feel in your heart when you find out that someone has been diagnosed with cancer or multiple sclerosis. That pain, that is love. That's why that is there. When I find out when someone's been diagnosed with cancer that I might know of, usually the first feeling I have is helplessness. Because what do I do? Let's be honest, what do you and I do? We make a prayer, we send some thoughts, and then we go on our lives. And yet the families who live with that individual or those people, those families on a daily basis exhibit love. Loving that human being. So this was born out of love. And every time one human being benefits another human being in some way or the other, it's an expression of love again. And in this world we live in today, more of us need to express love. It is more required now, more than ever, to express love. And not to let our biases come in the way of expression of our love. So these amazing 30 cyclists, I believe they'll raise much more than 2 million. Because we'll be following it very closely as AMA. Because from our perspective, what we do, whether it's benefiting women through our women empowerment programs, whether it's benefiting children in refugee camps around the world, whether it's benefiting women and children and elderly in rural parts of South Africa and in many hundreds of villages of Africa, it always starts in the foundation of love. So as much as this can be something incredibly sad, it can be something incredibly joyful. And I would love for this exercise to be an incredibly joyful exercise, born out of love. Because love never promised to only be joyful. Love is also pain. Sadness is also love. Tears also love. A broken heart is also love. I've never seen a man love his wife like Dr. Parker does. Honestly, I've never. Never. Whenever he speaks of her, and yes, it's not about him, and he'll be the first one to tell you, but it has to start somewhere. If he did not share his story with a fellow cyclist, they may not have been inspired to encourage him to start the initiative. So it has to start somewhere. And you know, a mentor of mine often told me and continues to tell me that, Imran, if someone ever tells you they're a self-made man or woman, then they haven't made much. Because nothing is done by one person. Nothing great is achieved by one person. So when someone says, I'm a self-made man, my first response is, well, I'm very sorry, you obviously haven't made much. Because even the greatest of people around the world, past or present, there's always a team behind them. Always. There's always others that also carry the torch. Yes, one person often is in the forefront. But that person, if they're really truly honest, would be the first to admit that it wasn't them by themselves. But it takes an incredible human being to first have the vision. And a true leader. Because a leader is someone who sees further and someone who sees first. And for a man to constantly talk about the incredible sacrifice that a woman made in his life, and not to allow his ego to take the credit for his achievements in life, but rather to live with humility and give that credit away to someone who's not even around any longer, that takes a unique human being. An early detection in cancer, or detection by itself, because as Dr. Parker mentioned, in many cases there's no detection. Detection and early detection is an expression of love. It's an expression of the fact that we care. Every single one of us genuinely care. So I believe honestly with every fiber of my being, this initiative is going to be incredibly successful, and year in and year out, it will raise millions and millions and millions of rands for early detection, for the benefit of people fighting cancer, for the benefit of people dealing with multiple sclerosis. Because at a time like that, what do most people need? Love. This is born out of love. It will be sustained by love. And we pray that the Almighty inspires every single one of us to find our humanity and then express that humanity with an expression of love. Because remember, none of us were born in a vacuum. You were not born in isolation, and neither was I. You were born amongst other human beings. You were born amongst the environment and amongst the animal kingdom, which means your purpose in this world, while we are worshiping our Creator, your unique gifts must be used not just to benefit yourself, as our esteemed Sheikh said earlier, not just to benefit your own life, but to benefit either the environment or the animal kingdom or fellow humanity. Because if you were meant just to benefit yourself, you'd be born in the middle of the desert by yourself. But you obviously were not, and I obviously wasn't. So I leave you with these words. Let love start this, let love penetrate our hearts, and then let love shine through to benefit even human beings that you and I may not personally know, but the fact is we come from the same source. Thank you.
Shukran, Brother Imran Shunara, for the beautifully spoken words, and certainly words that has come from your heart without a doubt, and certainly touching us very emotionally tonight as well. We move on to our next speaker who will address us this evening, and this is a gentleman who, after 4 decades as a judge, retired at the, I didn't even realize this, at the age of 69, quite young indeed. He was the first person of color from Cape Town appointed to the bench, and certainly drew an enormous amount of attention and support from the community. Certainly well loved in our community, a person whom many show great respect to, and certainly well earned over the years as well. He's here tonight to address us. A few years ago, he too lost his wife, Faiza, to cancer, and he will now address us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please, your attention and a warm welcome to retired Judge Siraj Desai.
Thank you for those kind words, Mehboob. I could call him Mehboob, I knew his grandfather. He made some incorrect biographical statement. I wasn't a judge for 40 years, I was a judge for 25 years, small difference. But importantly, I've been a lawyer for over 45 years, and that's a long time. But let me just start to say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me recognize my dear friend Sheikh Saadullah Khan, the Nazir Osman, the chairperson of this institution. Thank you very much for making this place available for such an event. Mr. Junara as our sponsor, and of course the local councillor, Mr. Mark Kleinsmith. You're very welcome here. Thank you very much for coming along. I'm honored to speak on this occasion. I'm honored for 2 reasons. I'm a survivor and also a victim of cancer. I myself had cancer a few years ago. And then after I recovered, my wife got cancer and she died within a year of being diagnosed. I had CLL. Those who know cancer would know what that means. If you choose a cancer, that's the best one to choose. You live. My wife had peripheral T-cell lymphoma, which is an aggressive form of cancer. And within a period of 12 months, she had passed on. But it's very important on occasions such as this to remember those who've actually died of cancer, and there are many around. When I was in hospital getting chemo, somebody gave me a book. It's a book called The Emperor of All Maladies. It's the biography of cancer. Cancer has a biography. It dates back 2,000 years. It dates back to a period when women who suffered from cancer took swords and virtually cut off their breasts, because to get rid of the pain. There were other sorts of treatment that came up from time to time. And from then to now, the treatment of cancer has improved tremendously. It's improved tremendously with the discovery of chemo just a few 100 years ago, or just about 100 years ago. Dr. Parker? It's about 100 years ago that chemo developed. Before that, about 200-300 years, the lymphatic system, which leads to cancer, was not identified as yet. With that identification, there was a massive improvement in the treatment of cancer. There were, of course, some sideshows in the attempted treatment of cancer. There was a stage when they believed that nuns were more prone to cancer because they were celibate. But that treatment got lost along the way. I was wondering what the treatment for that was. But in later years, the chemo developed to the effect that it is today. It's an enormous advance, a chemical treatment of the lymphatic system. But the important thing of cancer is not simply optimism. When I had cancer, I was optimistic that I would live, simply because I adopted an optimistic disposition. And I carried on with life as it was, save that I was from time to time in hospital getting chemo. But to all around me, people thought, I mean, this guy is nuts. I mean, he's smiling and walking around and he's got cancer. And with me was a good friend of mine. Some of you may know him, Zain Ori. Zain Ori was an activist who was hang out with us. We were all activists, virtually then in the retirement. And then Zain got cancer, but he had cancer of the lung. And he told everybody that he's going to do what I did. Was optimistic about it. He carried on with his life. But unfortunately, within a period of a few months actually, he passed on. The difference was he had lung cancer and was detected at a very late stage. Now that underlines the point that so many speakers have already made. The early detection of cancer is of vital importance. And in his case, lung cancer can be treated, but in his case, it was a very late stage of the lung cancer. It's steeped to other parts of his body, and little could be done about it. So optimism itself is not sufficient, but an understanding and an early detection of cancer it's much more important. That requires money. That requires support. More than anything else, it requires the education of a community as to what cancer means. You know, women should actually palpate the breasts fairly regularly, women of the 40s and 50s. If they don't do that, they'll discover too late that they have breast cancer. And that's a vital education that women should be taught to do. Incidentally, my niece, Nazia, you may know her, Nazia Faki, she's a oncologist that deals with the ovaries of women, the cancers of the ovaries of women. And I must say, if she's listening to me now, that when I had cancer, she was a very young doctor, and I leaned on her very heavily. I mean, she wasn't a cancer specialist then, but I leaned on her very heavily. I was a judge, her uncle, senior uncle, but I leaned on her heavily, and she assisted me through that period in my own life. So one leans on people when one has cancer. One tries to understand, why have you chosen me to be the victim of cancer? And my poor wife, just went, you know, those of you, Mehboob knows her, some of you do know her. My wife ran the Comrades. I can't even cycle, let her run the Comrades. And a year after she ran the Comrades, she fell ill. And we went to the doctor who was my endocrinologist. And he said, man, you're fit. This is glandular fever. And she was a nurse, trained nursing sister. She comes home and she says, look, man, this is a bit more serious. This pain is incessant. And then I phoned my friend at Gatesville and said, look here, we want to see another doctor at yours. You got somebody there. And he said, come in the afternoon. It was Jummah, so after Jummah, come after Jummah. Which we did. The doctor took one look at her and said, this is something more serious. And then she tested her. Within a couple of days, we knew that she had peripheral T-cell lymphoma. So there are valuable lessons along the way. That I could go to a doctor, I could phone the director of the hospital, I could arrange for somebody to see my wife at short notice. Not everybody can do that. So we live, as somebody has already said, which is my favorite line, that we live in the most unequal society in the world. Some of us can get from top-class doctors. Medical treatment for a doctor, for a cancer patient, can be as much as 1 to 2 million rand in a private hospital. To those of us with medical aids, we don't talk about it. But the majority of people in this country don't have medical aid on that scale. We don't have the ability to get the best treatment in the world. So the underlying problem can be resolved in many different ways. This is a good beginning, as what Elias and them are doing, creating awareness about cancer. But I think we must go a step beyond that also, that we must continue the call for a new society, a society in which every person in this country gets adequate medical attention, that not only I can get the top chemotherapy in the world, but that all of you and everybody outside the townships and the squatter camps get the medical treatment we can. So in beginning, whilst we salute this initiative, it's a beginning, it contributes in a small way to the process of change. We must begin the debate for the transformation of society. Mr. Kleinsmith is still here. I'm listening. You're listening? Attentively. Yes, Mr. Kleinsmith. We must look, and Mr. Kleinsmith, the start is in the townships of this country, amongst the poor. That's where we start. Unless we address the plight of the poor in this country, we will not end up with a happy situation at the end of the day. I can maybe congratulate the cyclists who are going to cycle, especially those who are cycling with disability. I never had the chance to be a sportsman. I suppose I didn't have the energy to be a sports person, but to you, to your colleagues, to what you're doing well, your cycling will be, I certainly will contribute to your cycling, not physically cycling, but I will contribute to somebody cycling per mile. Elias, if you will let me know, I'll choose one person who I will contribute. And, oh, somebody raised his hand, I'll contribute to you. And we must take this a step further. We must not simply the money, but an advanced consciousness of what cancer and multiple sclerosis are all about. And begin the debate with those who rule us, that it must create us a society in which all of us will benefit from the best of modern science. Thank you very much.
Shukran for those kind words, Judge Siraj Desai, and certainly quite emotional from your side as well, having lived through this, through your own illness, as well as having to deal with it with your wife, your late wife as well. It is on that point of what Dr. Desai said, that it begins with communities, it begins with creating awareness, it begins by engaging with others. And I think certainly testament to the work that our team of cyclists will be doing, that they've undertaken not just to do the cycle tour that they'll be embarking on, but also that they've committed to engaging, as I mentioned at the outset, with the relevant organizations, with communities that they'll be passing through the different towns, and creating that awareness, but also by distributing food hampers. So please, once again, please give them a warm round of applause for undertaking this initiative. Undertaking the initiative and also ensuring that they will be appealing to not just the business sector, but engaging with communities at different levels as well, and making a difference wherever possible through their various initiatives. At this point, we are dimming the lights because we are going to be watching the video presentation, and thereafter we will continue and we will have our speakers come up on stage.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're grateful first of all to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we've come so far in arranging the Wheel to Heal endeavor to raise money for cancer. Today is one of those training days where some of us have come out and we're going to try and prepare and be fit as far as possible for a journey that's going to take us from Mossel Bay to Cape Town of 560 kilometers. Clearly a treacherous distance for us to cover, lots of climbs. There are some days that we have a gradient to climb of in excess of 1.5 kilometers. So a diligent training regimen has been put in place, and today we are about to embark upon one such training exercise. We appeal to each and everybody, if you're not a cyclist, you need to support this endeavor. There are various ways you can just deposit money into the fund. Number one. Number two, we are 30 cyclists. You can sponsor each cyclist for X amount of rands per kilometer. That we leave up to you. We are asking you though to put your hands in your deep pockets, support the endeavor. What we can promise you is that every cent that is deposited into that fund is going to go directly to the beneficiaries of the Cancer Fund and the Multiple Sclerosis Fund. This can only happen if we have your support. We're going to put in the hard sweat, the toil, the climbing in the sun, in the scorching heat. We're going to put in the sacrifice. We're going to make sure that we are ready. We're going to make sure each 30 cyclists of us is going to make sure that we're going to cover that distance from Mossel Bay to Cape Town, 560 kilometers. However, the success lies at your feet. Our success is reliant on your financial support. We beg you, we beseech you, and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can reward you. Jazakallah.
Our departure from Cape Town will be on Saturday, 3rd of December by bus to Mossel Bay. And then on Sunday, 4th of December, we start riding from Mossel Bay to Cape Town. The towns we will be cycling through are Mossel Bay, Carletsdorp, Ladysmith, Barrydale, Montague, Worcester, Wellington, to eventually arrive in Cape Town on Sunday, 11th of December, when a gala family day is planned at Islamia College to welcome the Wheel to Heal cyclists back from their epic journey. We are determined to complete the long 530 kilometers ride back home, thereby motivating one and all to assist Wheel to Heal to raise 2 million rand for cancer. Our highest elevation will be 800 meters, and that is between Mossel Bay and Carletsdorp on our very first day of cycling. We will be cycling an average of 75 kilometers every day to reach Cape Town. In preparation, our endurance training is a minimum of 150 kilometers per week leading up to the start in Mossel Bay. Another motivating factor for all of us will be our hand cyclist in King Rafiq Parker. Yes, King Rafiq walks on crutches, and he will be cycling by hand with us from Mossel Bay to Cape Town. To all who will be following us from Mossel Bay to Cape Town, remember, nothing is impossible when you believe in the courage and determination of the 30 cyclists. Success comes to those who act, and we will be cycling to beat cancer.
Wheel to Heal wishes to thank every donor of any kind who's contributed in some way to raising funds for the Maryam Parker Cancer Fund and Shireen Parker Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. Charity, we know, is the only real investment that continues to grow endlessly. Your love, compassion and faith in what we do to assist others will forever be remembered.
A fund here this evening as well. So another wonderful aspect of the event this evening, that this fund is also being launched here tonight as well. Ladies and gentlemen, you saw the amount of hard work that goes into the training and the way that this has been set on and put about by the various members of the team, and the hard work and the drive that they have, the tenacity, and certainly we do wish them everything of the best in the endeavors to move forward. There are various beneficiaries that we've been told about that will benefit from the raising of the funds and towards which the money will be given to. And we are going to be calling upon, first up, we are running against time. We'd like to break within the next 10 minutes or so. So if we can have the CEO of Pink Drive, one of the beneficiaries, and that is Norin Kotchen, to please join us on stage and to address us for a few moments. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a warm round of applause.
I'm truly humbled to be standing here tonight amongst the distinguished guests, especially Dr. Parker, the amazing cyclists who are going to be undertaking this journey on behalf of the two beneficiaries. Someone once asked me, what do I want my legacy to be? And I said, I want my legacy to be able to have pink trucks that can take gender-based cancer screening to all the medically uninsured across South Africa. You probably ask, why would I want to do this? Who wants to run an NGO? We don't earn much. We never really get to meet some of the people we treat or we look after. But that reward is there. And it's done with love. And we've heard those words here tonight. Why did I start Pink Drive? I was widowed at a very early age. I lost my husband. He was misdiagnosed and treated for 2 years for tick bite fever, and he had a brain tumor. Shortly after that, my father was diagnosed with leukemia. From date of diagnosis to date of death, 3 weeks. Just after that, my younger brother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Fortunately, we could get him treatment, and he's still around today. So I founded Pink Drive NPC, a health sector NGO, in 2009 on the premise that early detection can, will, and should prolong a life. Pink Drive's purpose is to contribute meaningfully towards preventing as many people as it can from succumbing to gender-based cancer. The focus is on the medically uninsured who reside in areas where health services do not reach. It recognizes that treatable cancers receiving even the basic levels of care could translate into varying lengths of extended life for the afflicted when detected and treated early. If you do not know what Pink Drive does and what we have been doing the past 13 years, please visit our website www.pinkdrive.co.za to learn more. We've also got an office right here in the heart of Athlone, run by Tennille October, who's here this evening, and she's always available 24/7, but at night she does sleep a bit, but you can leave a message, and she will most definitely help you. We are well known for our pink trucks that traverse the entire South Africa and welcomed into rural communities across South Africa, as the arrival of our trucks gives hope to so many. We set out to prove that it does not matter what your background is or where you live, you are entitled to receive basic health care and education. Tonight is more about the amazing partnership we have had with Dr. Elias Parker and the launch of Wheel to Heal cycle tour taking place in December. I met the amazing Dr. Parker some 5 years ago, just before his beloved wife Maryam passed away. From this intense sorrow came something wonderful. Dr. Parker, with his ever-giving nature, invited Pink Drive to form part of the well-known community-driven Big Walk. The 2 years of the partnership were amazing, and then sadly, COVID put a stop to that. But Mahatma Gandhi said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And I've started that change. Dr. Parker, thank you once again for what you've done for Pink Drive, and reassure you of our ongoing support in ensuring the success of your adventure. And in conclusion tonight, Dr. Parker, could you please come and stand with me? Sorry about that. I'd like to present you with this pink ribbon. Travel with it for your beloved Maryam.
In the minute or two that we have before we have to break for the Maghrib Salah, I'd like to call upon Aisha Bibi, who is Rafiq Parker's daughter. If she could please just come up to the stage to say a few words, I'd appreciate that. While she's making her way, I've been also informed. Give her a round of applause, warm round of applause. It has been said, and this is to the cyclists, so I'm sure will echo my sentiments, that the hardest part about cycling is the pavement.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good evening, esteemed guest and cycling fanatic. I'm so overwhelmed with emotion this evening. Both my aunt and my mom obviously was extremely dear to me. Firstly, I would like to thank my uncle, Dr. Elias Parker, for putting this spectacular initiative together. Like I said, I'm overwhelmed with emotion. After seeing all the presentations and the speeches, I'm truly left inspired. And I'm truly grateful for all the effort that Papa has put into this, definitely a product of the heart. His wife and my mom were cousins, and they both had similar characteristics. They were soft in nature and always smiling despite the struggles that they were facing with their illness. And despite having struggles every day, just basic things were hard for them, they remained determined. My mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and she carried it with grace for 19 years. Seeing a loved one faced with such a challenging illness is extremely difficult. You want to do everything in your power to make their day easier, and you realize how fortunate and privileged you are to have simple things, to be able to do simple things like holding a cup. Fortunately for us, my dad always did what he could to make my mom's life easier. And as our beloved guest from the Pink Society mentioned, the people in the rural areas, they struggle, and we are privileged because at any time, if we told him we needed something, he made it possible, and we are privileged in that way. Since the inception of this endeavor, he has made numerous changes and has been putting effort in and day out to do his part in making sure that the goal to cycle from Mossel Bay to Cape Town will be achieved and that the funds will be raised for this course. He's even taken upon intermittent fasting in his own way to lose weight so that he can, achieve the goals that they have put down. There is no doubt that this initiative will have a long-standing impact on both the cancer and multiple sclerosis community. Dad, we are proud of you. We are proud. We are proud and grateful to all the cyclists that will be sacrificing their time to assist in the success of this initiative. I'm extremely grateful for Papa. Honestly, thank you so much for this, and I'm certain that we all will leave here inspired to help the next person that we know, like Dr. Chunara. I'm not sure what Mr. Chunara said, that there is a responsibility on us to help the community in every way that we can. I'm certain that we will all leave here inspired, and we will all do our part in making the community a better place for all of us. We wish you well, and thank you very much.
Shukran to you for that heartfelt words that you've mentioned and shared, and sharing from your heart. It certainly has come across, and how you spoke about your dad and his commitment to your late mom as well, and to the family. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to be breaking for the performance of the evening prayer, the Maghrib Salah. The masjid, as you know, is right next door. Thereafter, we'd ask you to hasten your way up to the Alhambra restaurant in this complex, where we will continue with our program, and thereafter supper will be served. Thank you for being a wonderful, attentive audience, and we look forward to conversing with you a little bit later on at the restaurant, inshallah. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wheel to Heal, cycling to beat cancer.